Everybody. It is Sarah back again. I'm really hoping that we've got a better connection this time. I think a couple of you were hanging in there and then it all sort of went down. So I'm hoping that we are coming back together and that we're able to keep going with this live. So as I'm here, I'm hoping that somebody else can jump in and give a shout if you can see me, hear me, waving, waving my blending brush. I'm hoping that somebody can just pop in a comment and let me know. I can see that there are some folks there. Hi, Maylee. Thank you, Ziamara. Good to see you again for I think the second or third time. So thank you, Lori. Okay, thank you, guys. Sorry about that. We had a really weird, never had that happen before. Had lots of other computer issues happen, but okay, it looks like we are back in business. So yay, thank you. Okay, so I think I may have been talking to myself for a while, which is nothing new, but just to catch everybody up, I've stamped my flowers, you can see here using the obsidian black, and then I went into coloring. So I think you can see that I've colored one flower already, still have the other one to go. So I've just done a base color on here. And forgive me if some of this is repeated, but I just want to make sure that we start kind of all together at the beginning. So I've stamped this floral image here. This is from the layering guide that's included with the stencils. So as you can see on here, you've got a number 1. It's in a little circle, and then it says A1. I'll hold this up so that you can see that a little bit better. So this will simply mean that you're going to use stencil number 1. Here's my stencil number 1. And I've marked on here with a Sharpie marker just so that I can see this more easily. Stencil number 1, and I will be going first of all to A1, which is this with my messy handwriting. So this is what I have already stenciled. So I just simply place this on top. I'm using a stencil brush. You can use the kind with the handles. You can probably also use one of these bigger guys too. And I stenciled that using the Coral Bliss. So because this flower has 2 layers on it, I just need 2 colors. So 2 shades of the same color. In this case, Coral Bliss was my lighter shade, and then Coral Berry will be my darker shade. So I've already done my Coral Bliss with A1. Then I can move over and go to A2. Just kind of scoot this around. And sometimes, depending on how you've stamped your flower at what angle, you may need to do a little, scooching around there. But they're quite easy to line up. So I'm really concentrating on this sort of edge on here. And what's really nice is Altenew will also indicate on the shape sort of which area to kind of look out for. So I've done my Coral Bliss. I'm going to come in with the second color, which is the Coral Berry. I'm using the same brush here. And again, just going to come in and use a gentle circular motion. And you can add more ink or start with a really light touch. Really just depends on the look you're going for and the style that you like. So there's my second layer there with the Coral Berry. And there I've got my dimensional flower. So easy to do. So there's just 2 layers to this flower. So then I've got my second blossom that I can do, which is this large one here. Again, this is also 2 layers. So I'll need to go to stencil number 1, B1, and then stencil number 1, B2. So I'm going to use the same colors for this. So I've got B1 marked on here. And I do like to do the marking with a permanent marker just so that I can see it more easily. This may be my aging eyes or my dark craft room I'm not sure what it is, but it just makes it a little bit easier for me to find things in my crafting stash. So I'm going to come back again with my Coral Bliss and ink this up. So my lighter of my two colors, I'm just going to ink away with this. Now you can always do just one layer of color if you want to. That's always a possibility. So if you're thinking, oh, I don't have very much time, or I really kind of like this very soft, subtle look, you can do this quite easily too. Okay, so Coral Bliss was my base color, and then I'm going to pop it up with some Coral Berry. So that was B1. Then I can move over to B2 and scoot this along. Let's see. Got this here and scoot this over like so. And then I'm going to come back again with my Coral Berry, so the darker of the two, inking this up. And again, I am using the same brush this whole time. So because I tend to keep my brushes color separated, so I've got one brush that's for all my greens, I've got one brush that's for all my pinks and reds, one that's purples, and then I wash them every now and then. Probably not as often as I should. Okay, so then there is my second layer. Now for the leaves, I've got two leaf colors that I'm going to work with. I've got jade and I've got eucalyptus. These two are from a new set of greens that I have that's called Frosted Foliage. So this has four of those little squares in there. And I'm just going to be using two of the medium colors in here. Okay, just going to check and see that we're doing okay. Okay, great. Hi, Audrey. Good to see you. Thanks for popping in. Thanks to everybody who popped in and then came back when we had our technical issues. Sorry about that. Okay, so for this one, I need to have stencil number 3. And of course, I can see this on here. So I've got stencil number 3. It's in a circle. And then I've got G1 and G2. And that's going to give me the layers of my stems. So here's G1. And position this on here. And with this one, with the stem, I always want to double check this little portion up here and then also this leaf over here. I'm switch over to my green blending brush. And for this, I'll do the jade. So this is the lighter color. And I love this technique too, because you could really go for very different ink colors. You could do brights, you could do really subtle colors. You can definitely experiment and kind of see what different shades combine to come into some different combinations. Okay, so there's my jade, and that's going to give me just my base color. Again, if you wanted to do only one color instead of doing the layer, you definitely do that too. So there are all kinds of possibilities here. All right, so my second color is going to be the eucalyptus. And let's just get this color on here. So I've just scooted over the stencil a little bit. And then I've got my leaves colored in too. So then what you can do from there is, if you want to add in one of the sentiments, this is one of the sentiments from the stamp set, the Happy Anniversary. On the stamp set, you've got, let me grab this here. You've got quite a few really nice sentiments for anniversary. You've got congratulations up here, happy anniversary, anniversary. You've got mom and dad, wishes, 25th, 50th, and then you've even got to my beloved on there. So you've got some really nice sentiments in here for weddings and anniversaries, which I think is nice. And I realized I don't really have anything in my stash for anniversaries. So this is a really nice one to have on hand. Nice, simple floral. and away you go. So really simple and easy to use. So that is our first technique. That's our first way that we can use these. Now, this is very simple, just simply stenciling and adding a stamped sentiment. You can also, of course, work in some more layers. So with this card, I've got that double flower, same one that we just saw. So you can see just angling them in a different direction is going to give you a really different look. So here they're pointing this way instead of this way. And then I've got this nice big flower on here. So this is the bigger, bolder one. And then I've also got some leaf elements tucked back behind here. So let's take a look at our big flower. And I've already stamped it in black, so I thought we could get a little bit of a shortcut there. And again, I was using my obsidian black for this. And I thought what we could do for this one is, here I'm going to use the Blue Mountains ink set. And the two colors, or the three colors that I want to use here are Alpine Aster, and then I'm going to use Crystal Violet and Indigo Skies. So these are going to be the three that I'm working with. Again, looking at our layering guide here, so I can see this is stamp C, and then I need on stencil number 3, I need C1, C2, and C3, and this is kind of what I'm aiming for here. So stencil number 3, I've got that ready to go. So I'm going to start with C1 and position this here. And I'll start with the Alpine Aster for this one. And find my blue brush. And just simply ink this up and add the color in. And this is one thing I really love about the mini cube sets from Altenew, because you know that you're getting lots of colors that are all going to work with tone on tone, either tone on tone stamping, and layered stenciling. It kind of takes the guesswork out of digging through your stash of inks to find the right layering shades. So it's a nice shortcut. Okay, so this is the Alpine. And when I take this off, makes it a little bit easier to see. And again, if you wanted to stop here, die cut this, maybe stamp some of the leaves, even just leaving them uncolored, I think that would make a really pretty soft and delicate design. So that's always an option too. So always considering like what your time frame is and what you're able to do. Okay, so that was the first layer on here. Now I need to go over to stencil number 2 and use C2. So I'm going to set stencil number 3 over here and move over to C2. So on here, use the stencil quite a lot. I've made little marks on 2 portions of the stencil. Those are my guides for where I can easily line things up. So this little portion here lines up with this little fold on the petal. And this was just an easy way for me to get things aligned, kind of like my starting point for aligning things. So you can see I've got this lined up here and here. And then I'll move on to my next color, which is the Crystal Violet. Ink this up and add this color in. These blues are really beautiful. And if you are a blue person, if you're somebody who loves those rich, gorgeous blues, this is a gorgeous, gorgeous combination. And again, just coming in with a gentle circular motion. You can apply more pressure in some areas and lighter pressure in other areas. And there we've got our second layer. So then again, you can stop here. This is also a great place, a great stopping point if you want to. So you could say, I've done my alpine, I've done my crystal, calling it good. Or you can say, let's go on and add in some indigo skies. So the indigo skies, again, it's going to be stencil 2, C3. And I've got that right here. So what I'm going to do is just match this up again because the stencils kind of slide into place. And that's a good thing to kind of keep in mind when you're lining things up. If you find that you're kind of twisting and tweaking things around and having a hard time finding the orientation of it, just remember that one will sort of slide from one direction into the next. So that can also help. Okay, so I'm going to come back in with the indigo skies and add our third and final layer here. You can also do your layering with a single color of ink. So if you wanted to start with, say, for example, Coral Bliss, and you do one layer of Coral Bliss, shift the stencil, and do just a heavier application of that same ink pad color, you can get some really beautiful tone-on-tone looks. So that's another option for you. When you're playing around, consider that. Okay, so then here we go with our third and final color. And you can just see those rich, beautiful blues. I think that is just absolutely stunning. Now, what you can do from here, couple of different options. You can leave this as is, stamp a sentiment on here, and you are set. You can also grab your cutting dies. Remember, you've got those that match perfectly, and die cut your shape. And then from there, you can work in some of your leaf elements on here too. And the leaves are going to stamp and stencil in exactly the same way. They're very, very easy to do. And so this is a great way, again, to add some different looks. Now, one other thing I would point out, where is it on the package? And I think I'd mentioned this earlier too, but you can also leave some elements black and white. So in this case, with the same flower, this is all colored, but then you've got the leaves just black and white in the background. So you can pop elements up. You can do some masking as well, old school masking, but there are so many different options with this. So let me bring back in my card, and you can see here what I've done. So I've stamped and stenciled the double flower like we did in the first portion, added in my second flower, and then these are all popped up on some foam tape. And I've got the leaves going on in the background. I've got the congratulations down here, and then I've got some sequins on here. And the sequins that I'm using are the satin gold sequins, and I just love gluing those into some of the empty space in there. And I did some spattering in the background using the jet black ink. So a nice way to get some color and some dimension there in the background. Pamela saying, I can't decide whether I need / want the full size or the mini size ink. I have to say, Pamela, I'm really happy with the minis, and I think this is pretty much all the inks that I have from Altenew are in the little ones, and I just like it because it saves space. I have a small crafting area, and I can easily store things that are smaller. And I also like when they come in these little sets because then you can grab them and you know that you've got them layered and ready to go. Although in my dream world, I would have full-size ink pads of all the colors. So I don't know if that helps you or not, but just my 2 cents worth. Okay, so I wanted to show you also another option for this. Now, this card is a very soft and subtle color combination. And just to point out the difference, let's see, let me get this card back. Stamping in black stamping the outline in black, and then the contrast to stamping it with a color that is not black. And I was experimenting with this and I thought, oh, this is kind of interesting. So I thought we could have a look at this. And I'm going to grab again my Misty. And let's have a look here. So, I'm going to find a cardstock, pop this into place, and then I'll kind of talk through this a little bit and share with you what I had experimented with. I had a lot of fun with this stamp set, I think you can tell. So instead of having a really crisp black outline, I wanted to see what it would look like if I was stamping and coloring in the same sort of tone family. So I am grabbing my Lavender Fields, which is a nice light lavender. And then I've also got the Deep Iris. Now you can tell from the packages, these are pretty old. So they're not dry. They're still perfectly usable. But if you're wondering about the packaging on there, why it looks different, it's just because I've had them for a very long time. And another thing I love about my Altenews inks is that they last for a good long time. So I'm going to do this element up here, and let's take a look, as I'm doing some different things here with this. And I figured we could see how this goes. Okay, so I'm just going to pop this down. Again, smooth white cardstock. Pop this up on my stamp positioner, and I'm going to ink it up with the Lavender Fields. So now, because my inks are a little bit older and tired, sometimes like I feel, I may need to do a second go with them, which is why I love the stamp positioner. It just means if I miss a spot or if my ink pad's running a little dry because it's 7 years old. But actually, it looks like I did okay. Okay, I'm going to do just another pass to make sure that we've got a bit darker color on here. But again, this is the Lavender Fields that I'm stamping with. Sue is asking if I have re-inkers. I do not have re-inkers, and that would be a really good thing to have, actually. I do not have re-inkers. I have actually not needed, with the exception of my embossing ink, which I use a lot and definitely do use a re-inker for. For the most part, my inks are hanging in there really well, which I'm quite happy about. And it's a little bit surprising. I have some other ink pads that I've had for not as long as my Altenews inks that are stone dry. I had to clean out quite a lot of them quite recently, actually. So they do hang in there. They do stay juicy for quite a long time. So even using these guys years and years later. Okay, so here's my flower stamped very subtly. And again, going back to my layering guide. Now for this one, I'm going to skip C1, which is the kind of silhouette background, and I'm just going to go to C2. Now C2, remember I had to mark my space to line this up. So that's what I'm counting on again here. And I'm going to ink this also using my Lavender Fields. So I've stamped with Lavender Fields and I'm inking it with Lavender Fields. And I'm going to use kind of a light touch. I mean, again, this is a light color. It's a pale color. So I do want to make sure I'm getting enough ink on here for it to show. And especially for it to show for you guys, because I can see it quite well, but I know sometimes with the camera it's a little bit trickier. So then with this color combination, I've got a really soft kind of a shadow effect. So again, as it is, or I can come back and do C3 and angle this hopefully in place. And for this one, I will use the deep iris. So the deep iris is a darker color. And again, I'm going to use a light touch to start with, and then a little bit more pressure as I'm going around here. And you can do more pressure and a darker color in some areas, lighter in other areas. As you are getting used to your inks or getting to know your ink pads, you'll know which ones you need to have a light touch with and which ones you can have a bit more firm pressure. And pull this off. So I really liked this effect. I thought that this was just a nice soft look, something a little bit different. And when you're adding in different elements like this, you can start doing some kind of tone on tone effects in the background. I've just done some spattering back here. I've got another section of the flower. Now what I've done here is I've die cut these pieces, glued them onto my spattered background, and then trimmed around the excess. So, and that's also another option. You don't have to use the flowers in their entirety. You can use the same flowers that we've done on both of these. So it's even kind of in a similar layout style. So I've got my large floral element up here and my two smaller ones down here. And I've just trimmed off some of the excess down here at the bottom. And then down here, you'll notice this little thanks. The thanks is not on the stamp set. It is in the signature words dies. I'm looking around my very loaded table here for the package. Here we go. And this is a set of dies. So you've got hello, thanks, and congrats. This is the thanks. And this is a die set that I have used for so many years, and I just absolutely love these. And so I've just die cut this and popped it down, and I think it's a really nice, soft and subtle look. But I love the contrast that you can get between going really tone on tone, and again, stamping and inking the first layer in Lavender Fields, and then a second layer in a slightly darker color. It'll give you a really different look. So speaking of different looks, I'm going to move aside my stencils because I'm done with those for right now. But I wanted to show you another look that you can get, because I talked a little bit about coloring in images, and that's what I have done here. So with this design, I'm not using the inks at all. I'm not using my blending tools at all. I'm coloring in with the water brush markers. Now, I love water brush markers. I try and sneak them into a live like as often as I can because I think they're such fun tools to use. But this technique will work whether you're doing water brush markers or watercolors or lots of other mediums too, watercolor pencils. So in this case, what I've done, and I've actually got the piece already stamped because I wasn't sure how we would be on time. So I've stamped and embossed this image and the leaves using the pure white embossing powder. And I've got it here on this sheet. I've got my flower, I've got my leaves. I know it is impossible to see because it's white on white, but once we start coloring, then it'll appear. So the pure white, not clear, not gold, not a metallic, although you definitely could do the same technique with other colors. So just working with my Tropical Fiesta set. And again, this will work with any of your water brush marker sets. Doesn't have to be this color set particularly. So I'm just going to get out, I've got fresh lemon is one, and purple wine. I'm going to do that for the flower, and then the leaves, I've got lime here. I'm working on my craft mat because this is going to protect my work surface, and it also can be used as a palette. And I've got a water brush and some water over here. So the flower, I know it's like hide and go seek. The flower is right here. So let me start coloring this in so that you can see it. So as I'm just scribbling on here, you can see the resist of that white. So the water brush markers contain your watery medium, which is wonderful because they're portable, because they're pens and they're markers, but also because you've got this wonderful tip on here, you can get into some various areas of your design that really allow you to get some nice detail work. So when I'm doing this, I'm not squeezing the barrel of the water brush marker. I'm just letting that fresh lemon kind of flow out. And I think you can see some of that detail coming in here. And again, this technique will work with really any of your embossing powder colors. So if you like to do the clear, that can go. Any of the metallics will look really pretty. I just really like working with white because it gives you, again, a nice soft look, a soft effect, and you can do some really fun looks. And of course, you can go soft and subtle if you want to use a really light color, or you can go bold and really, really high contrast, high color. So I think you can see some of this coming through here. And I'm going to come along down here. And I'm really just scribbling in the color. And it's going to dry pretty quickly. I've stamped this onto, it's not a watercolor cardstock, although you definitely could do a watercolor cardstock. I like to use like a mixed media cardstock, something that is sturdy and can take a watery medium without buckling or warping or, getting any little fuzzy bits or anything like that. Smooth, sturdy white cardstock will do the trick. So I'm just coloring this in here. Let me get all of that color on there in all of my various areas. And again, utilizing those nice tips on the markers. So here's my yellow on here. Tracy is asking an embossing powder with peach. Yes, there is. And maybe Han can remind me of the name. I think, is it golden peach? I was on a real tear with it for a very long time and probably had a live or a video using this like once a week. I just was in love with it. Golden peach. Now I'll be racking my brain. Okay, so I've got some of the purple wine. I'm just scribbling it onto my craft mat. I'm going to take my water brush, and I'm just using this as a paintbrush. It's damp, and I'm picking up some of this color. And then I'm just going to come in here and add some color, kind of in the center of my flower, going around, just adding in another little shade just to darken some of this and deepen some of it. So I'm working with it being diluted, and then while this is wet, I'm going to come in here and go straight from the marker itself around in some of this area too. And I'm just sort of switching back and forth between my brush and my little puddle that I'm working on, using my craft mat as my palette. Okay. And you can carry on, you can keep going with this as much as you want to. You can intensify the color, you can dilute the color, you can really customize this. So I've got some nice bold color in here. And Audrey says, Sarah, you make it look so, oh, Audrey, you know what I have to say is that I appreciate this about Altenew so much is that it is easy to experiment with things like this because you've got so many different options. And like with, where did it go? Where's my really soft card? With this card, for example, I wasn't sure what this was going to look like at all and was just experimenting. And the thing with Altenew is like, you do have the freedom to experiment because the quality is so good, the designs are so good that it definitely, even if you make a mistake, and I've made plenty of mistakes, I know that I've got a lot of great solid techniques and solid effects to fall back on. So I don't know if that's kind of addressing this a little bit, but I think sometimes when you see people demonstrating in it and it does look easy, for one thing, we've been working with the designs or the set for a while. I played with this all weekend. And so we do have the opportunity to experiment with things and kind of see how things look. I don't share all of my mistakes. Sometimes I do because I do think it is interesting to see a process. But I have to hand it to Altenew because a lot of their designs are just seem custom made for experimenting and for doing different techniques. And not just the designs of the stamps, but also things like the water brush, for example, or the water brush marker. So I'll show you with the purple wine because it's a nice dark color. But you can see here on the tip that this tip is such a nice, stable tool. It just really makes it easy to do. So you can get some nice washes, and I'm just scribbling this on here. You can also get some finer lines. Let's see here, something like this. You know, you can really have some control on here. So I'm going to let my flower kind of dry there while we're hanging out. Oh, I see. I should try watercoloring. I've been too scared of it. Oh, you can do it. Watercoloring is a nice, relaxing technique to do. And also, if you're working with a stamped image and you do your heat embossing, you've got some lines to kind of hold things in. So I've got my lime. I'm going to come in here and just scribble this into this leaf, which will magically appear. This white on white is tricky to see, I know. So again, just kind of scribbling in the color. And this is straight from the marker. So you can see where that white has made a resist. So I'm going to scribble some of this on my craft mat. Pick this up again. Same thing, just pick it up with a damp brush. And maybe come in here. And this water brush is Altenew's as well. I do not use my water brushes as water brushes. I just use them as paint brushes. So I don't fill the barrel with water. I just get them wet and then use them as a brush. Okay, so I'm really just kind of scooting around the color on here. And you can see how that's creating some really nice leaves on there. Tracy's encouraging. She's she's encouraging the watercolor. It is super forgiving. You're right, Tracy, and it's just really relaxing to do. Start with a stamped and embossed image. Something like this is perfect, and stamp and emboss a bunch of them and see, just see what you think. See what colors you like, and if you find, like, for example, let's see, I'll get some really dark color in here. If you're finding like, ooh, that's too much, it's too dark, it's too watery, come in with a cloth or a napkin or an old rag, wrap it around your finger and blot. And you can get some interesting effects too, but you can lighten things up this way. So you do have a little bit of control over things too, which is really nice. But I have to say, having the raised edges of a heat embossed image will kind of control the direction of the watery medium so that you're not spilling out over your various lines on there. And then you just need to let things dry. So I can see that this is still pretty wet in here. So I'm going to let that dry. And when it does, I will have something that looks like this. Now, of course, each time you do it, it's going to be something a little bit different. So I can go from something quite bold and intense or something quite soft and subtle on here. All right, so that was our second technique besides the coloring. And I'm really glad. Thanks so much for hanging in there with me this evening. I apologize for glitches with any of our computer issues or server issues or back end issues. Who knows what it was? I'm just glad we were able to be together for this. So I'm going to bring out our cards again and just kind of go over the various looks that you can get with the Ambridge Rose set, because we're coming up onto an hour, and I'm so glad we were able to get to all of our various techniques. So everything from stamp it in black and do your layering using the layering guide from the stencil set, a simple stamp on here, and you are good to go. And I have to say, around the outside edges, maybe a bit tricky to see. I used my big blending tool and I added in a bit of pink pearl just to shade some of the edges around there. So that's also another option for you too. So crisp, simple, easy to do. You can combine those two flowers, the flower cluster and the large shape on here, and add in some of those leaves as well. Do some spattering, get in some sequins, get your foam tape. And I have to say, this card did not take very long at all for me to make. This card didn't take much longer, to be honest. Like, it's got a lot more going on, but I was really surprised when I really thought, oh, that didn't take a whole lot longer. So if you stop with one flower or just keep going, the possibilities are really a lot of fun. You can also skip the black ink, swap it out for something a bit more tone on tone, and you can get a really soft and subtle look. I like it with the lilacs. I think it would be really pretty with some soft blues. And from the comments, I can see that the blues are a favorite of lots of you guys as well. And then also think about your watercoloring techniques, whether you're using water brush markers like I did today. You can use the watercolor paints, metallic watercolors. Altenew has some of those, as well as the woodless watercolor pencils. Those are a lot of fun to play with too. So lots of fun techniques that you can do with there. Oh, and Tracy's reminding me of the artist markers, calling her name. Tracy, here are your artist markers. They call my name too. And I was just thinking, I haven't used those for a while. So maybe for the next live next month, I'll bring those out and we'll have a play with those too. All right, so I'm going to once again show you the stamp set that we've been working with. Everything's buried under everything else here. So it's the Ambridge Rose stamp set. Nice big floral elements on here, absolutely stunning. And also there are dies to go along. There are also the stencils. Hang on, where are the stencils? Here are the stencils. The stencil set to go along with this too. I was also using the signature words dies for one of the designs. And of course, all of your gorgeous inks, whether you are using the little cubes like I do, or if you are going for some of the larger ink pads, you've got lots of different options to go with that as well. So a very, very big thank you to everybody for joining me today. Thank you to Han for popping in all of the links. And thank you again for jumping back in maybe once or twice when we were having our technical gremlins coming in and visiting us. And I'm just really glad that we were able to get through all of our fun techniques and have fun with our Ambridge Rose. So or if you want to share tonight's live while we are live, you can be in for a $15 gift certificate to the Altenew store. And yeah, I think you'll probably be able to find something pretty fun at Altenew. I know I always find something. So again, a very, very big thank you to you all for joining us tonight. Thank you to Han, and thank you to Altenew for giving us so many great things to play with and to enjoy. So a big thank you. I will see you again next month for another live, and maybe we'll bring out those artist markers. So thank you for the reminder on that and the inspiration there. All right, take care, everybody, and have a wonderful rest of your week and weekend. I'll see you again soon. Bye-bye.